Yeah, so my name is Ijaz Sayed. I'm currently the director of advanced analytics at a company called Edwards Lifesciences that produces medical devices. And I've had about 11 plus years in finance. And the last 3 or 4 years, I've played this role in supply chain for the digital transformation organization at Edwards. Yeah, so I had a similar background. First got into college. I didn't do too well in high school. So I ended up in community college. And when I got into community college, I realized this is my last chance. I need to make this work. And so I got into community college and I was working three jobs. So I worked at Nordstrom Backstock. I worked at TJ Maxx in the front, making, $5, $6 an hour or something, or whatever it was at the time. And then I worked at a real estate office. And then I went to school full time. And so growing up, I actually had my dad was into investing, right? So we had a lot of ups and downs. And unfortunately, we had more downs than we had ups. And so in the 90s, while I was growing up, we, pretty much lost everything. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. We had 6 people. So 4 kids in one room, a bunch of furniture stored from the house that we used to have, and my parents in another room. And so that was kind of me growing up. Now, given the ups and downs, I naturally became pretty risk averse. And so I stumbled onto my education, like what I chose to major in, kind of stumbled onto that. So early on, I did not know what I wanted to major on. I went to community college and I ended up in accounting and economics because a friend that I talked to, that I went to college with, he was doing accounting and he told me, hey, accountants are the last people to be laid off, right? So no matter what, even if a company is losing money, they need accountants to be able to count it. So I said, you know what, I'm risk averse. I don't want the ups and downs that my dad went through. And so I'm gonna major in accounting. I transferred to UCI. And then when I transferred to UCI, I went in as economics and I came out as political science because I realized I liked writing a lot more. When I came out with political science, then I realized, I was going to get married and a whole bunch of other stuff was happening. You can't really make any money with a political science degree necessarily unless you go to law or you parlay it to something else. So I went back to community college and I finished my accounting degree and then kind of progressed from there. I liked accounting and finance a lot more when I actually got into it. I don't know that when I was studying it that I, understood it even as well as I did once I started actually working in the field. When I went back to community college, what is this now? The third time that I'm realizing that I really got to get something together here. Now, I got married when I was 22. So I came out of college at 22 years old. Within a few months, I was going to be married. I needed to make something happen. I wasn't going to, continue working at Nordstrom or something like that to be able to sustain. And so I went back to community college and I did what I should have done when I went to my 4-year university in the first place. I joined the accounting club and I still remember to this day, Professor Brenda D'Amico. This is 14, 15 years ago. I walked into her office, joined the club, whatever she needed. She needed ice one day, I brought her ice. She needed coffee, I brought her coffee. Anything she needed, I did. And then one day I asked her, hey, can you get me an interview? Do you know of any place that's hiring? And there was a guy who actually, full circle, my first boss, Ruben Porras, recently passed away. He was looking for somebody to assist him in his office, his tax practice. 2-3 people. They did payroll, bookkeeping, taxes, etc. And she got me an interview there. And I think it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. She got me the interview. I went there, I did the interview, and he started me the next day. And I was making, with a bachelor's degree, okay, and with having done all my accounting courses, I was making $12 an hour. And so to me, it was enough to get me started at least. The good thing about starting at a really small place like that, not obviously for financial reasons, because that definitely was not there, but you get to learn a lot. So you get exposed to tons. All my journal entries, all of the doing bank reconciliations, dealing with customers, all that different stuff that I learned there was like really, really foundational, basic accounting principles that I would need when I eventually ended up going to a few of the other companies that I went to, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, a little bit later. But all the foundational stuff kind of came from that job. For accounting, there's a lot of things like, balance sheet accounting. So you have fixed assets. Okay, fixed assets are, major things that you've purchased. It could be a building. I work for a materials company, cement manufacturing company, right? So you have these huge loaders and you have all these mixer trucks and everything. That's fixed assets. So end-to-end fixed assets, you have to manage that life cycle from acquisition to, depreciation to disposition. You're booking entries, right? You're creating entries, you're booking entries, and you're doing a lot of, I don't want to call it administrative stuff, but it is really repetitive. And some people really, really enjoy that. And for some people, it can be challenging to stay, focused when you're doing repetitive stuff. Finance to me is more like the commercial side of the business. So when I got into finance first, it was at that same cement manufacturing company. I did a whole bunch of accounting stuff. I did fixed assets, balance sheet accounting, like pensions and 401ks and health benefits and vacation accruals and all that stuff. And then I got to a point where I was like, man, I'm doing the same stuff. I did my job so fast that 3-4 o'clock every day I could leave. So I went and approached my boss and I said, hey, I want to get under the finance side. And the finance side, you're working a lot more directly with people that are running the business. So people that are running plants, people that are running manufacturing sites, people that are doing the marketing, people that are doing the sales. And it's a lot more different. So you'll be looking for, from a finance perspective, at least within a business, when you're in commercial finance, you're looking at how do you make the business more profitable? What products should you focus on? What products do you think it makes more sense that are just not profitable? Maybe they don't fit with your business well, and you'll work with business partners like marketing people, people that run plants, et cetera, to make those decisions and decide, that I'm going to go in or I'm not going to go into this business, or we're going to pull out of something, or we're going to sell something, or et cetera. It's a lot more, it changes more frequently. And you're working a lot more with, again, people that just think differently than you, people that are not in finance. And so to me, I enjoyed finance a lot more than I enjoyed accounting. But to be successful as a finance person, I found it really helpful to have that foundation layer of accounting. So yeah, going from a small company to a bigger company, very, very different. So the smaller the company, the more breadth of experience that you get. The bigger the company, the more depth of experience you get, right? So in a small company, for example, the company I started, I had 45 clients that were small businesses like restaurants and, small distribution companies and auto shops, etc. And I did everything. I did their bookkeeping, I did their bank reconciliations, tax returns, I did I oversaw the payroll, et cetera, a whole bunch of stuff. And then when I went to a bigger company, I went to a cement manufacturing company, and that was like, probably you could call it $1 billion company, right? A lot bigger, but still, if you look at the full range of companies, it was like a mid-sized to a smaller sized company. And when I went there, I started in fixed assets. So I had like maybe a tenth of the scope that I had from my previous company. And then I learned fixed assets really, really well. I learned an ERP system, which is an enterprise resource planning system, basically where everything for your company financially, any transactions that take place happen within this system. And that was the first time I learned how to deal with the ERP system. So, you go from QuickBooks, which is really, really easy to use, and small Midas, GL, and other little tiny softwares that are very easy to understand and very easy to follow, and therefore very small companies. You go to these humongous systems that, you really have to learn how to use to get the information you need to be able to do your job. So I think, the biggest difference is going to be breadth versus depth. Yeah, so I don't know that there's a typical, everybody has kind of their own path that they chart. I would call mine is not a traditional route, right? I went to a little tiny company because I just had this absolute need to be able to start making money, whatever it was going to be. It took me 5 years to get to this bigger company, and I had tried a lot, right? I had to rework my resume, do all kinds of stuff to get to this bigger company. What I would say is focus on getting involved early on while you're in college with, leverage your network. People all around you, people that go to church with you, people that go to school with you. Talk to people and talk to your professors, get interviews, get internships, do whatever you can to land the first one, and be open. You may not get the best job right out of the bat. If you set your standard at, I want to make, I have a dollar figure in my mind, and if I don't get that, I'm not going to start anywhere. You're wasting time. Get in somewhere, spend a little bit of time there, learn as much as possible. One thing that I tried to do and that I don't know that I fully succeeded at, and you'll always have a challenge balancing this, is focus on learning. When you get there, learn as much as you possibly can, and then, continue to look outside. And when you find another opportunity, if you get a lot of opportunities internally, you can adjust. So I'll give you an example. I went from this small company, I went to a far bigger company. I performed on doing fixed assets, and I standardized all the processes and everything. And then a bunch of people started leaving. And I was thinking, hey, I can make more outside and everything. But what happened is, as people started leaving, opportunities started opening up. So I went from fixed assets to balance sheet accounting. So you have what's called DBs and DCs, defined benefit plans, defined contribution plans. So your 401k or your pension, that's the difference between the two. Did a whole bunch of that. Then the person that was doing our actual financials, that person left. So then I started rolling up financials. And for a time, I was actually doing both. I was doing fixed assets and liabilities. And then I picked up, doing the financials, and then eventually got rid of fixed assets, fortunately. But then I got so much experience in 3 years, you would not have gotten that anywhere. So you have to kind of roll with the punches. When you have all these opportunities thrown at you, you could choose, hey, I'm getting all this stuff and I'm having to do a lot more, and I'm not making a tremendous amount more each year, but I'm getting a load of experience in a really, really short period of time. And so I took that. I did all of those in 3 years, and the next 2 years I spent in finance. And because I was successful in all those different things, I got the opportunity to do even more by our CFO. Then I made a move that was tough to make. So I went from this company, Cal Portland, the cement manufacturing company. This is a company that, if you compare it to medical device, there's not as much margin. There's not as much profit in a cement manufacturing company. It's a really, really tight company, like financially. I got an opportunity to get into Johnson & Johnson. My boss just randomly said something to me one time, and I got really upset. And I was like, all right, I'm leaving. And I applied to Johnson & Johnson. And I knew, huge name. Everybody knows Johnson & Johnson, right? And so I figured putting that name on my resume would be really good. And they gave me an offer. They gave me literally, I think it was like a couple $1,000s more than what I was making at Cal Portland. Because I had moved so often, I got a lot of raises, and I got used to getting these raises. And then I was renting a place that was really cheap as well from a buddy of mine. So I called one of my friends and said, hey, I got this opportunity to go to Johnson & Johnson. They're bringing me in almost exactly at the salary I'm at. They're bringing me at the same title that I'm at. I don't even know, is it worth it? Should I not go? Maybe I'm making the wrong decision. Rent here is cheap, etc. And he told me, it's like, first off, you're breaking away from a certain industry and you're getting into an industry that's much tougher to get into, and that opportunity is not going to present itself to you again. And second thing was that, though the title is the same, what you're expected to do and what you're going to learn is likely going to be way bigger at a Fortune 50 company versus a company that is not even near the spectrum. And so I took the job. And the CEO of Cal Portland and the CFO and the CIO and they all came and talked to me and said, no, trust me, read between the lines, can't tell you directly. There are going to be opportunities that open up at Ijaz. Stay. You're going to get a lot more opportunities at a small company, this, that. So I ended up making the decision to go. And a few months after I arrived at Johnson & Johnson, and it was Johnson & Johnson, a tough place to learn. You have to get up to speed really, really quickly, and expectations are far higher. I actually remember one specific thing that my boss, Eugenia Shepard at Johnson & Johnson, who was fantastic, told me. She asked me 3 months into or 2 months into the job or something like that, hey, how are you doing? How are you liking it? How are you coming along, etc. I told her, I was like, yeah, I've learned businesses before, and I'm learning a business now. So it's not that challenging. It's I can do this. And she told me, she's like, yeah, you've learned businesses before. Fantastic, right? Anybody can do that. What have you done to influence the business? What have you done to change the business? Have you made any, given any feedback to the business that's going to make it better? And I realized, I was like, man, I got arrogant and I thought that I knew everything, but there was still room to grow. So you will start somewhere. Don't be picky about where you start. Do constantly have it in you to want to get somewhere better, but also recognize the opportunities you have in front of you. It won't always be financial reasons that you'll go somewhere, but having gone to Johnson & Johnson, opportunities opened up like I would not imagine after that. Like I've had so many opportunities since then because I have this huge name on my resume. And so I think I've made a lot of different decisions, and that was one of the good ones. When you get into the work world, there are people that take ownership and accountability, and they'll drive things, whether they're given clear direction or not. And there are people that'll sit there and wait for direction. And if you yourself think about, if you were to hire somebody, or if you were to have somebody doing some work for you, do you want to sit there every 2 minutes and tell them what to do? Or do you want to turn around, come back, and they've got so much stuff done that it's fantastic, right? And you don't have to do very much, right? You want the latter. And so what I would do is, there are a lot of times when somebody will say, hey, we have this problem. There's, we can't figure out who charged something to some cost center, right? You can go and start talking to people in IT. You can go and start talking to, look up expense reports. You can drill down into different systems and figure out which system houses what information, so you can go and find out what that is. You can do a lot of things to figure something out without having to bother your superiors about it, right? And so you have to look for those. Be a person that takes accountability, that takes ownership, that has drive, and that goes and figures something out. If somebody doesn't know something, go to the next person. Can't figure something out, go to Google, right? And etc. Like, use the resources that you have at your disposal. Don't sit and wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Okay, there's very simple thing. You go into a really big company, and there's a lot of people that'll fill your head with negativity, right? Hey, you're just a number, you're just a this, you're just a that, you're not gonna be able to get anywhere. You gotta go somewhere smaller, you gotta go somewhere else to get somewhere. And it's not true. The fact of the matter is, the thing I realized, I wanna say one very simple thing, right? There are, especially at a company that size, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that work for a company. But there's like a handful of people that are actual leaders at that company, people that can decide what your future is going to be, people that can promote you and get you places. And so the only way, if you imagine yourself as a leader and you have thousands of people in front of you, the only ones that are going to stand out are the ones that either raise their hand for something, they volunteer for something, they go out of their way for something. When you applied to college, right? For those of you that got into, different colleges and everything, and you remember when you were younger, you did all these extracurricular activities. Why? Because there are thousands of applicants, and the applicants that have something that stands out are the applicants that get noticed, and therefore they get in, even if they had maybe didn't meet the GPA requirement or something like that. So when you go to work, nobody will ever tell you this. When you go to work, you do not spend your entire time at work working your butt off, because nobody will realize that you're the person that is fantastic. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. So what you have to do is you have to split your time between working really hard and finding organic ways to advertise what you've done to your superiors and to people that are beyond your superiors. So what I used to do is be organic about it, right? But if you're going to be fake about it and you go into a meeting and tell everybody what you do, people are just going to hate you. Is find organic opportunities. So if you, I have an example of, there was a senior director at J&J that I knew had done specific things that I was also working on. So when she was younger in her career, she had done the same stuff that I was now working on. So I knew two things. I knew that I was doing a good job at what I needed to do, which was, specifically there was it's called the cost to serve. So you basically calculate what it costs you to serve a customer, right? For warranties and stuff like that. And I found an opportunity to do a one-on-one with her and to not only show her what I was doing, but also ask for her feedback. Like really, really genuinely. I wanted to know, is there something I'm doing wrong? Is there something I could do better? You've done this before. You understand this inside out. What insights can you give me? And I achieved two things. First, I got insights from her that are fantastic and to help me even improve further. And second, I got to show her what I'm doing. She would never have had the opportunity to know who I am even, right? Had I not done those things. Then the other thing I did was I volunteered, and you'll see, if you watch The Office or other comedies and stuff, right? They kind of poke fun at the stuff we have to deal with at work. There's party planning committees and there's, committees and all these different things. And I used to think that those were useless things to participate in, that they were for the people that came to work because they wanted to hang out. And it's not the case. What those things allow for management to do is not only build a culture that is positive and whatever kind of culture that they're trying to build at the company that makes, people more productive as a result and make people feel included in the company so they work harder. It also allows them to get insight on how you lead before you actually get into a leadership position. So if your goal is to get into a manager position, some kind of a leadership position, you want to get into the higher ranks from a management perspective, you'll be able to show them by leading these efforts how you lead, because there will be little groups of people and you'll give them guidance and you'll come up with ideas and everything. And then you'll have to present to management what you're doing from a culture perspective. And as a result, you'll again get recognized for things that you may not have had the opportunity to display otherwise. You have to have something that's going to motivate you, right? Something that's going to kind of transcend the different barriers or other things that you may run into. So for me, first off, when I went through a lot of ups and downs, and in being in a 2-bedroom apartment and having to borrow money for rent, and I was making $30,000, or I was making like $48,000, I think, when I came out and everything was great. And I was working all these hours to make that. It wasn't like I was making it on my base salary. I had to work a lot to make it, right? A lot of you will come out hopefully in a better spot. Then the financial crisis hit and my hours got cut and everything. I was making $30,000. My parents lost everything. My younger brother got kicked out of his apartment in Riverside. So I had 6 or 7 dependents. I think my first son was probably born at the time. I was making $30,000 a year, and I did refuse to move out of Chino Hills, which is a little more expensive because I didn't want my family at home and have to worry about that as well. I was supporting all these people. Nobody had an income except for me. And so I swore there's no way I'm not putting my kids through that. I'm not going through ups and downs, and I'm not going to have my kids start essentially negative. That's where I started, right? And when I started my career, I was supporting all these people, and I kind of should have had the opportunity, I wish, to start at least at zero. So that's something that's motivated me throughout my career. I'm not going to go back, and I'm going to make sure my kids don't go through the same thing. I don't care if I have to work, right, as a custodian somewhere, whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And the other example I'll give is you just don't give up, see things through. Okay. See things through. I went from Cal Portland to Johnson & Johnson, right? I went from a person that everybody knew. The CEO talked to me before I left. The CFO loved me. Anytime there was an opportunity, they gave me the opportunity, right? To the point where even outside of finance, they said if I wanted to run a plant, an actual plant location, not a cement manufacturing plant, but a ready mix or aggregate site, they would give me an opportunity to do so. To being a nobody. I went to a brand new company, I'm a nobody. And not only am I a nobody, I'm a nobody that came from a company that people don't even know, right? I didn't come from a Deloitte & Touche or a big company or something. So I was the bottom of the barrel for all intents and purposes. And I remember when I went there, there were a number of different variables that I had, right, to deal with. Number one was this company was tough. Like the statement that I told you, my boss told me, right, that, hey, it's great, you know how to learn a company. What have you done to influence a company? And those things can either stress you out or motivate you, right? And so I remember I was so stressed and it was so hard of a job, especially when I started. And there were executives there that I had to present to, and they were harsh. They like literally the first meeting I had with one of the executives to present something, they basically says garbage. And I was there 2 weeks. I didn't even know the business that well at that point. And basically just like figure it out. And you just threw me out of his office and said, go figure it out and come back. And I remember I was talking, my old boss messaged me at that time and I told him, I was like, yeah, man, it's really tough. I don't know, maybe I should come back. And he went and talked to the CEO at Cal Portland. CEO said, hey, come back, Alan Hamler, come back. We'll take you, no problem, no harm, no foul. I told myself, I thought about it and I was like, no, I can't mentally get myself to go. If I lose here and I go crawling back, like I'm not in a good position there, and I can't live with myself knowing that, hey, I failed. If I get fired, I get fired, right? I have enough experience. I'll be able to get another job, but I have to succeed. And so I stayed, and it was stressful and it was hard and everything. But then I realized, some of the other stuff I talked about, the advertising and the, connecting with people and doing one-on-ones and all this different stuff that felt really inorganic at the start, but I figured out how to do it. And when I stopped worrying about, getting fired or not getting to the next level and started spending a lot more time understanding the business I was supporting and selling, and coming up with strategies with my marketing partners and all that, that I was able to start moving a lot further, a lot faster. But do not give up. Don't go backwards for the reason that you feel that, you can't do it. Don't do that. If you want to go back because you like the culture more and right, go for it. When I went to Johnson & Johnson, they were telling me all these different things at Cal Portland that, hey, there's likely something coming up, just wait it out. A few months after I left, there was another person that was working there that got promoted to a position that I had wanted. It was a director level position. I was a senior analyst. That's a huge, huge difference. And I remember that hit me really hard too. I was thinking, man, they told me over and over to stay, and I could have had that opportunity, and I squandered it by coming here. And it was tough for me not to not to kind of weigh down on you. I let it go and I moved on and everything. And what I realized now, looking back on it, it was still the right move, because though I would have moved up, I would have still been a small, maybe a big fish in a small pond, right? As opposed to where I am today, where, over the last 3 years, I've gone from being a senior financial analyst to being a manager in a digital strategy organization, doing integration and all this stuff. And then going to, distribution compliance in medical device, which is really complicated and everything, but within digital strategy as a senior manager, right? To now, within 3 years, I've gone from senior analyst to manager to senior manager to director in 3 years, right? And in completely, now I'm in digital strategy for, advanced analytics, using AI, using ML, figuring out how we can uncover things proactively. I would never have had that opportunity had I stayed at that company. And though I would have got promoted, I just would not have had the opportunities that I've had here and now. So just don't limit yourself. Look for opportunities and recognize opportunities, and then take some risks.